there comes a moment in every person's life where everything feels like it's falling apart, where the prayers feel unanswered, the doors feel locked, and the future feels blurry. A moment where you look at your situation and whisper to yourself, maybe this is it, maybe this is the end. But what if I told you that the place you're standing in right now, the place that feels like collapse, is actually the birthplace of your greatest turnaround? What if everything you're losing is making room for everything you're about to gain? What if the silence is not abandonment, but preparation? Life has a way of convincing you that darkness is final, that disappointment is permanent, that delay means denial. But the truth is far more powerful. Every ending you face is a divine setup for something bigger, something deeper, something you couldn't have imagined even if you tried. You're not standing at the edge of defeat. You're standing at the doorway of transformation. And the very fact that you survived what was designed to break you is proof that your story is not over. Before this message unfolds, let me tell you this is not the end. This is the turning point you've been waiting for. Every ending in your life is never as final as it looks, because what you call an ending is often the very environment God uses to prepare you for the next dimension. Many times we stand at the edge of situations that look hopeless, situations that look like there is no way forward, and we assume that everything we once believed, everything we once prayed for, everything we once hoped for is slipping through our fingers. But the truth is that heaven often hides new beginnings inside experiences that feel like closures. When a season expires, it rarely announces its replacement. It simply creates a vacuum, a discomfort, a silence that makes you wonder if you misheard God. But that silence is not the sound of abandonment. It is the sound of transition. There are moments when God will allow certain doors to close so that your spirit becomes sensitive enough to locate the door He is about to open. If He allowed everything to continue as usual, you would never shift, you would never grow, you would never stretch into the new identity He is calling you into. You cannot embrace resurrection until something has died, and you cannot step into a new chapter until the old one loses its power to hold you. So when life pushes you to the edge and you feel like everything is ending, you must learn to discern the difference between destruction and divine redirection. One breaks you, the other builds you, and often they look deceptively similar at the start. There are times when God will separate you from what you think you need because the next dimension requires a different version of you. Sometimes He shuts down relationships that became weights instead of wings. Sometimes He dries up resources that kept you dependent on your own strength. Sometimes He interrupts plans that were too small for the destiny He placed inside you. And because we are human, because we feel deeply, because we grow attached, we mourn the ending instead of recognizing the birthing that is happening right behind the scenes. Heaven's greatest breakthroughs are often wrapped in the discomfort of loss, silence, and uncertainty. Think about how many people in Scripture encountered endings that look permanent. Joseph's journey is a picture of divine contradiction. His life seemed to go from favor to betrayal, from betrayal to slavery, from slavery to imprisonment, and each transition looked like a downward spiral. To anyone watching, it seemed like Joseph's life was ending piece by piece. But the truth is that every ending was positioning him, aligning him, preparing him, until the day came when the prison door opened and he stepped into a position no one could have predicted. The same pit that tried to bury him became the pathway that led him to the palace. His ending was not an ending. It was a divine setup for influence, elevation, and purpose. Many times your life moves in that same pattern. You may not understand why something had to fall apart, why God allowed certain people to leave, why opportunities dried up, why prayers seemed unanswered, why the season turned dark without warning. But what if the ending you fear is the ending your destiny needs? What if heaven is clearing out the old so that the new can come without interference? What if the door that closed was protecting you from rooms that were too small for your anointing? There are answers that only begin to make sense when the new chapter opens, not when the old one is closing. Every time you feel like something is ending, heaven is beginning something else in the background. The challenge is that beginnings rarely feel like beginnings. They feel like confusion, discomfort, and disorientation. When you plant a seed into the soil, it disappears. It is covered by darkness. It is buried. If you did not understand the process, you would think it has died. But the burial of the seed is the beginning of its transformation. It must break. It must surrender its old form. It must yield to a process that strips it of what it used to be, so that it can become what it was always destined to become. Endings in your life work the same way. What looks like burial is often planting. What looks like loss is preparation. What looks like silence is growth. Something is happening beneath the surface that you cannot see yet. There are seasons when God removes your plan so he can reveal his. He empties your hands so he can fill them with something greater. He ends what you settled for so he can give you what he intended for you. But because we often judge God's movement by our emotions, we misinterpret the season. We say, this must be the end. But heaven is whispering, this is the beginning. We say, everything is falling apart. But heaven is saying, everything is falling into place. We say, I have lost too much. But heaven says, you are being positioned for restoration. Sometimes God will let you come to the end of your strength, your ideas, your strategies, your relationships, your resources, not because he wants you to break, but because he wants you to shift. As long as you rely on your own ability, you will never see the dimension of his power that only appears when endings drive you to surrender. There is a version of you that only emerges when every support system collapses. There is a strength inside you that only appears when you have no option but to trust. There is a revelation that only comes when you stand at the edge of what feels like the end and still choose to believe. Life will train you to panic at endings. Faith trains you to expect new beginnings. When you reach a wall, God is already preparing a door. When you reach a valley, he is already preparing a mountain. When you reach a dead end, he is already preparing a pathway. But he rarely reveals the next step until the old step becomes too small for your destiny. You grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and purposefully when endings push you into the unknown. Every ending in your life is a prophetic message that something new is on the horizon. Nothing ends without purpose. Nothing ends without reason. Nothing ends without making room for something that carries a greater glory. The relationships that ended, the job that ended, the season that ended, the plans that ended, they were all chapters, not your story. They were classrooms, not your home. They taught you, shaped you, refined you, and now they have released you into the next dimension of who you must become. When heaven wants to shift a man, it ends his comfort. When heaven wants to promote a man, it disrupts his normal. When heaven wants to introduce a new version of a man, it brings an ending to the version he has outgrown. So do not fear the ending. Do not mourn like someone without hope. Do not assume that God has abandoned you simply because you have reached a point where you can no longer continue the way you once did. This ending is a divine announcement. This ending is an invitation to transformation. This ending is the beginning of a turnaround that has been in motion long before you realized it. What you think is ending is actually unfolding. What you think is dying is awakening. What you think is breaking you is building you. You are not standing at the edge of a collapse. You are standing at the doorway of a new chapter, a new grace, a new season. And soon, when the dust settles and the new begins to reveal itself, you will look back and realize that the ending you feared was the very moment heaven began writing the turnaround you have been waiting for. Delay does not mean denial, because delay is often one of the most misunderstood tools God uses to prepare a person for the future they have been praying for. When you look at the story of your life, you will notice that the things that came too quickly rarely lasted, and the things that took time to manifest carried a depth, a strength, and a value that nothing else could replace. Delay is a furnace where impurities are burned off, where impatience is refined into endurance, where expectations are shaped into maturity, and where your character is strengthened enough to hold the weight of what you are asking for. Many people want the promise, but they are not yet ready for the responsibility. Delay becomes the classroom that trains your heart and enlarges your capacity. There are moments when you stand before God and you feel certain that the timing is now. You feel ready. You feel prepared. You feel hungry for the manifestation of your prayers. But heaven sees beyond your feelings. Heaven sees the internal gaps you cannot see in yourself. Heaven sees the unseen enemies you are not yet prepared to confront. Heaven sees the weight of the blessing you desire and understands that certain blessings, if given too early, will crush the person rather than elevate them. So God delays, not to punish you, not to frustrate you, not to abandon you, but to transform you. You are being built quietly in the shadows, trained internally, stretched emotionally, strengthened spiritually, and refined mentally, so that when the promise arrives, it does not destroy you but establishes you. Delay is not stagnation. Although it may look like nothing is happening, invisibly the pieces are being rearranged. God never wastes time. He uses it. He uses it to prepare relationships, to arrange opportunities, to align resources, and to move certain people into or out of your life. Some blessings require timing outside your control, and heaven must orchestrate external elements before the manifestation becomes possible. There are doors that cannot open until certain people leave. There are positions that cannot be given until someone else completes their season. There are relationships that cannot begin until healing has taken place. There are opportunities that cannot be released until preparation is complete. Delay is not denial, it is alignment. When you are walking with God, the waiting room is never empty. It is filled with lessons. It is filled with pruning. It is filled with transformation. You learn to trust in the silence. You learn to surrender your anxious timelines. You learn to find joy in what you already have rather than constantly craving what you lack. You learn to sit still long enough for clarity to replace confusion, for wisdom to replace emotional decisions, for faith to replace fear. Waiting breaks the illusion of control. It teaches you to rely not on your plan, but on God's timing. And when that shift happens, you become someone who can stand firm, even when everything external contradicts what God said internally. There is a difference between God's no and God's not yet. Many people panic because they believe that if something hasn't happened yet, it means God refused them. But heaven rarely begins with denial. Heaven begins with preparation. When God intends to deny you something, He will close every door to it. When God intends to delay something, He keeps the desire alive. He keeps the promise burning in your heart. He surrounds you with confirmations. He gives you dreams, reminders, signs that the promise is still valid, even if the manifestation is not visible. A denied season feels like disconnect. A delayed season feels like tension. That tension, that pulling, that inner knowing that something is coming is evidence that heaven has not denied you. Heaven is preparing you. The human heart naturally hates waiting because waiting forces us to confront ourselves. You confront your impatience, your insecurities, your fears, your doubts, your belief systems. You confront the parts of yourself that want quick results without deep roots. You confront your desire for instant gratification and your discomfort with uncertainty. But every confrontation is a purification. Every delay is an invitation to dig deeper, to mature, to build the kind of inner strength that will sustain you when the blessing comes. God is not merely interested in giving you what you want. He is interested in transforming who you are becoming. And delay is one of the greatest tools He uses for that transformation. Think of how a seed grows. Once it is planted, you do not see anything for a long time. The soil becomes the hiding place. The darkness becomes the incubator. The silence becomes the shield. If you did not understand the process, you would assume the seed was dead. But beneath the soil, roots are forming, structure is strengthening, and the seed is anchoring itself deeply so that when the plant begins to rise, it will not be fragile or easily destroyed. That is exactly how God works with your destiny. The silence is not the end, it is the root stage. The delay is not denial, it is divine rooting. When the manifestation comes, it will last because it was built on deep foundations. Look at David. He was anointed as king as a young boy, but he did not step into the throne until years later. If you judged his life by the delay, you would think God lied. But God was preparing him through battles, through rejection, through isolation, through victories, through losses. Every delay was a training ground. The throne required maturity, strategy, humility, and spiritual strength. Without the delay, David would have been a king in title, but not in stature. The delay created the stature. Look at Hannah. Her womb was not denied. It was delayed. And the child she birthed became a prophet who shifted a nation. If Hannah had received her child too early, she would not have made the vow that aligned her son with his divine assignment. Some delays are because the blessing is meant to carry purpose beyond you. Not everything you are praying for is about your comfort. Some things are about kingdom assignment, generational impact, future influence, and divine timing. Look at Sarah. Look at Joseph. Look at Moses. Every person God used mightily carried the mark of delay. Because delay is a divine signature. It means heaven is investing in the outcome. It means the blessing is not ordinary. It means the story will not be casual. It means when the breakthrough comes, no one, not your enemies, not your family, not even you, will be able to take credit for it. Only God. Delay gives glory to God because it creates a testimony that points upward, not inward. When God delays, He is strengthening the vessel. He is removing the wrong motives. He is revealing the people who cannot go with you. He is preparing the environment. He is refining your discernment. He is enlarging your spiritual stamina. He is teaching you to pray with depth, to worship with sincerity, to trust without evidence. You become someone who is not shaken by seasons, someone who understands timing, someone who knows how to hold on to promises even in darkness. That kind of person is unstoppable. Delay also reveals who belongs in your future. There are people who will walk away because waiting exposes loyalty. There are relationships that cannot survive the process. There are partnerships that will crumble when the results do not come instantly. Delay filters your environment so that only the right people remain. And sometimes God delays not because the blessing is not ready, but because He refuses to bring your promise into an environment surrounded by the wrong voices. If the people around you are not aligned with your destiny, God will prolong the process until the circle is clean. You must understand that delay is part of destiny. It shapes your endurance. It trains your faith. It sharpens your focus. It breaks your dependence on feelings. It pushes you to grow in ways that comfort never could. And when you come out of that season, when the manifestation finally arrives, you will look back and realize that the waiting produced something inside you that the blessing alone never could. You will appreciate the promise more deeply. You will handle it more wisely. You will guard it more fiercely. You will use it more purposefully. Delay means preparation. It means God is working behind the scenes. It means something bigger than your imagination is being aligned for the right moment. And when it finally happens, it will not be late. It will be perfect. Your tears, pain, and battles are never wasted, because in the realm of destiny, nothing you walk through comes without purpose. Human beings look at pain as punishment, as misfortune, as evidence of failure or abandonment. But heaven looks at pain as raw material, as seed, as the very substance that shapes strength, wisdom, depth, compassion, and spiritual stature. The painful seasons of your life are not interruptions to your destiny. They are the engines that push you toward it. Nothing matures a person faster than struggle. Nothing awakens clarity like heartbreak. Nothing strengthens the spirit like adversity. And nothing brings a person closer to God than the moments when everything familiar collapses and they have no one to lean on but Him. There are things about yourself that only pain can teach you. You won't learn endurance in comfort. You won't learn resilience in ease. You won't learn spiritual authority while everything is peaceful. But let life press you. Let the season bend you. Let tears fall unexpectedly. And suddenly you discover capacities inside you that you did not know existed. Pain exposes what is weak, but also reveals what is strong. It tears down illusions, but builds grounded truth. It breaks you open, but only so that new strength can come forth. Pain is a refiner. It is a purifier. It is a sculptor that shapes the version of you required for the next level of your destiny. You must understand that the battles you fight are never random. They are tailored to your calling. The intensity of your warfare often reveals the weight of your future. Some people are fighting small battles because their assignment is small. But when your destiny carries influence, when your voice is meant to impact nations, when your steps are meant to shift generations, your battles will not be ordinary. The enemy does not waste ammunition on meaningless targets. If your life has been marked by deep struggles, intense seasons of pain, betrayal that pierced deeper than expected, setbacks that felt unfair, and cycles that seemed unending, it is evidence that there is greatness attached to you. The battle is fierce because the calling is great. Think about how a soldier is trained. They do not train ordinary men with light exercises if they are preparing them for elite missions. They push them past their breaking points. They test their endurance, their strength, their courage, their stability. They make them face extreme conditions so that when the real battle comes, they are not easily shaken. In the same way, God uses your trials as training. The pain you felt was not to destroy you, it was conditioning your spirit. The heartbreak you endured was not to weaken you, it was to detach you from human dependence. The betrayal that broke your trust was not to make you bitter, it was to sharpen your discernment. Every moment of pain created a version of you that is more alert, more wise, more grounded, and more spiritually aware. Every tear you shed is a seed, because tears water the soil of transformation. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come after seasons where you've cried more than you've spoken, prayed more than you've explained, and endured more than anyone knows. Tears soften the heart so God can mold it. Tears wash away pride, ego, and false strength. Tears open the door to divine comfort and divine strength. When you cry before God, you aren't losing, you are surrendering. You are releasing what was too heavy for you to carry alone. And every time you surrender, heaven responds. Pain also reveals who truly belongs in your life. There are people who celebrate you in your strength but abandon you in your weakness. There are people who enjoy your success but disappear during your battles. Pain exposes false loyalty. It reveals motives. It separates destiny helpers from destiny destroyers. Many times, God allows pain not to hurt you but to cleanse your environment. Your destiny cannot thrive in the midst of wrong people, and pain becomes the tool that separates light from darkness. Your battles are seeds because they plant humility, hunger, and dependence on God inside you. Success without struggle creates pride. Comfort without challenge creates complacency. Influence without adversity creates superficiality. But when a man or woman has suffered, when they have endured storms that should have broken them, when they have fought battles that left scars, they carry a depth that cannot be imitated. They walk differently. They speak differently. They pray differently. They advise differently. They see differently. Pain deepens a person in ways that blessings alone never can. What you went through taught you things nothing else could. You learned how to fight in the spirit. You learned how to stand firm even when everything around you was collapsing. You learned how to discern voices. Who was for you, who was against you, and who was pretending. You learned how to pray with sincerity, not out of routine. You learned how to walk with God not for blessings, but for survival. These lessons become foundations for the future. The person who has gone through pain and survived becomes unshakable. They are not moved by rumors, not broken by opinions, not weakened by temporary storms. They have seen too much, endured too much, fought too much to be easily discouraged. Pain also breaks the attachment you have to your old self. There were habits you would never have broken without pain. There were cycles you would never have escaped without heartbreak. There were environments you would never have left without disappointment. Sometimes God allows pain to pull you out of what you would never leave voluntarily. It forces growth. It forces transformation. It forces evolution. Pain transitions you from who you were to who you must become. Your battles also serve another purpose. They become evidence of God's faithfulness. When you look back over your life, you will see moments where you should have lost your mind, but you didn't. Moments where you should have given up, but you didn't. Moments where you thought you wouldn't survive, but you did. That survival becomes your testimony. It becomes the confidence you carry into future challenges. You no longer fear the unknown because you have seen God move in the dark before. You know that if He kept you then, He will keep you now. Nothing you've gone through is wasted. Every heartbreak taught you discernment. Every loss taught you value. Every disappointment taught you patience. Every betrayal taught you boundaries. Every delay taught you faith. Every storm taught you endurance. And every tear watered the ground for your next testimony. You don't grow during the easy seasons. You grow during the painful ones. You don't become strong in comfort. You become strong in pressure. And God uses every ounce of your pain to sculpt the version of you that is capable of carrying destiny. When you finally step into your season of breakthrough, you will understand why you had to suffer. You will understand why it took so long. You will understand why certain people left. You will understand why God didn't answer earlier. You will understand why the process felt so intense. Your pain was not punishment. It was preparation. Your tears were not evidence of weakness. They were prophecy. They were watering the ground of your future. You are not coming out of this battle empty-handed. You are coming out with strength, with wisdom, with depth, with clarity, with spiritual authority, and with a testimony that nobody can argue with. And when the turnaround finally appears, you will realize that everything you endured was not in vain. It was the very path that carried you to the blessing you were born for. When human strength fails, that is often the exact moment divine strength begins to reveal itself. Because as long as you believe you can carry everything on your own, you will never fully experience the dimension of God that is reserved for absolute surrender. Human beings are naturally wired to try first, to fight first, to fix first, to lean on their own logic, their own discipline, their own strategies, their own connections. We plan, we organize, we push, we solve, we calculate. And when things work, we take the credit. When they don't, we panic. But there comes a point in every destiny where your wisdom is not enough, your network is not enough, your resources are not enough, your strength is not enough, your experience is not enough, and your confidence collapses under the weight of what you are facing. That breaking point is not defeat, it is divine invitation. It is the moment heaven steps into the story. You only discover the true power of God when you reach the end of yourself. If you could do everything on your own, there would be no need for divine help. But God intentionally designs certain seasons to push you into realms where only His intervention can sustain you. He allows storms you cannot stop, valleys you cannot navigate, battles you cannot win, and burdens you cannot carry, not to destroy you but to shift your dependence. When God wants to reveal His strength, He first brings you to the limits of your own. Human strength can take you far, but it cannot take you into destiny. Human strength can produce results, but it cannot produce miracles. Human strength can build, but it cannot resurrect. So God waits until you say, I can't do this anymore, help me. Not because He was absent before, but because surrender gives Him permission to intervene. The enemy often attacks hardest when you are tired, because he knows that exhaustion weakens discernment, steals courage, and clouds judgment. When you are weary, overwhelmed, and stretched beyond your limit, that is when doubt whispers the loudest. That is when fear feels strongest. That is when giving up looks like the easiest option. But it is also the moment where divine strength becomes most accessible. God does not respond to pride or self-sufficiency. He responds to authenticity. When you stand before Him without pretending, without trying to look strong, without hiding behind confidence, and simply admit, I am weak, heaven moves. Weakness is not a disqualification. It is a doorway. Your inability is the very place God's ability finds expression. There are times when you try to fix everything by yourself, carrying burdens that were never meant for you. You carry responsibilities that belong to God. You carry fears that heaven already answered. You carry pressure that was supposed to be surrendered. And you wonder why you break under the weight. A human heart is not designed to carry the entire load of destiny. Divine strength is what sustains the journey. But as long as you insist on doing everything your way, in your timing, through your methods, you prolong the breaking point. When God loves you, He will let your strength fail because He cannot allow you to build your future on self-reliance. He knows that human strength eventually collapses. Divine strength never does. Sometimes God hides His strength behind impossibility. He allows you to walk into situations where your skills cannot save you. He lets you stand in front of Red Seas. Moments where you are surrounded by pressure, limited by options, and overwhelmed by fear, just to show you that what you call the end is where He begins. He waits until the door is fully closed so He can open one you didn't know existed. He waits until every earthly solution has expired so that when the miracle comes, you know without question that it was His hand, not your wisdom, that made the way. Divine strength is most visible when human strength is irrelevant. Human strength is loud. It says, look what I did. Divine strength is quiet. It enters when your voice cracks and your confidence dissolves. Human strength is about effort. Divine strength is about surrender. Human strength expects control. Divine strength requires trust. Many people never see God's power because they never give Him room to move. They crowd their lives with anxiety, with overthinking, with constant striving. They trust in their own ability more than in God's timing. But those who walk in divine strength are those who have learned to step back, to release, to rest in the assurance that God can do more in one moment than you can do in a lifetime. There are seasons where God allows you to be pressed, but not crushed, shaken, but not destroyed, overwhelmed, but not overtaken. You think you are breaking, but heaven sees you becoming. You think you are falling apart, but heaven sees you being rebuilt. You think you are losing everything, but heaven sees you gaining what truly matters. When human strength fails, divine strength is not just available, it becomes unavoidable. You begin to notice that despite the chaos, there is a peace that makes no sense. Despite the uncertainty, there is a courage you cannot explain. Despite the delays, there is a hope that refuses to die. That is not you, that is God holding you. Think about Elijah sitting under a tree, exhausted, overwhelmed, praying to die. He had fought battles, called down fire, confronted kings, and carried responsibilities no man was meant to carry alone. His strength broke, his courage collapsed, his hope faded. And instead of rebuke, God sent an angel. Divine strength showed up in rest, in food, in silence, in comfort. Because divine strength is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is the quiet reassurance that you are not alone. Sometimes it is the invisible hand that keeps you standing. Sometimes it is the renewed breath in your lungs when you thought you were done. Think about Paul begging God to remove the thorn in his flesh. He wanted relief. God offered revelation. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. That was not a rejection, it was an invitation. God was saying, Paul, the part of you that feels like a disadvantage is where my power flows. Your weakness is not a mistake. It is a channel. Many people spend their lives trying to hide their weakness, but God wants to use it. He wants to show the world that even in your fragility, His power is undeniable. Divine strength also protects you from pride. If life always worked the way you planned, you would never acknowledge God. If every breakthrough came immediately, you would take the credit. If every door opened effortlessly, you would believe you did it by yourself. But when you have walked through nights that almost broke you, when you have faced battles that pushed you to your knees, when you have survived things that were meant to destroy you, you develop a humility and a reverence that nothing else can produce. You stop boasting in your ability. You start trusting in God's ability. You shift from "I did it" to "He kept me." There are seasons when divine strength does not remove the battle, but carries you through it. God does not always eliminate the storm. Sometimes He strengthens you so deeply that the storm that destroyed others cannot touch you. Divine strength is not just power. It is protection, guidance, endurance, resilience, and supernatural stability. It is God saying, you will not break here. You will not fall here. You will not be defeated here. I will carry you. When human strength ends, divine strength begins. And where divine strength begins, victory becomes inevitable. When you look back on seasons where you had nothing left, no motivation, no energy, no clarity, no answers, but you still survived, you still prayed, you still hoped, you still held on. That was not your strength. That was God's strength working within you. Divine strength fills the gaps you cannot fill. It rebuilds what life tried to shatter. It restores what your heart thought was lost. It lifts you when you cannot lift yourself. And at the end of the journey, when the turnaround finally manifests, you will realize that it was never your strength that brought you through the fire. It was divine strength, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment, carrying you toward the destiny written for you before you were even born. The turnaround comes when you refuse to surrender, because the greatest battles of destiny are not won by strength, talent, intelligence, or connections. They are won by persistence. There is a point in every person's journey where the difference between breakthrough and breakdown is not ability, but refusal. Refusal to quit, refusal to accept defeat, refusal to allow temporary circumstances to dictate permanent identity, refusal to let fear silence faith, refusal to let disappointment rewrite destiny. Every great story, every great testimony, every great transformation begins with a moment where the person decided, I'm not giving up here. You must understand that the enemy does not fear your gift. He fears your persistence. He does not fear your calling. He fears your consistency. He does not fear your prayer. He fears your endurance. Gifts can open doors, but only persistence keeps doors open. Talent can make you shine for a moment, but persistence turns temporary momentum into long-term transformation. Many people start strong. Many people dream big. Many people pray passionately until adversity appears. But the people who rise in life are the ones who keep walking even when strength fails, keep believing even when answers delay, keep fighting even when the battle intensifies, keep hoping even when evidence contradicts the promise. Every destiny has a breaking point, an invisible moment where the pressure becomes so unbearable that giving up feels like the logical option. This moment often comes right before a major breakthrough, because the enemy understands something most people do not. The darkest point of the night is always moments before the sunrise. When you feel like you have nothing left, when circumstances seem impossible, when the path ahead feels blocked, when prayers seem unanswered, that is not the end, it is the final threshold. And the only thing that determines whether you step into breakthrough or collapse in defeat is the decision to keep going. People often assume that resilience is a personality trait. It is not. Resilience is a choice. You choose to stand. You choose to rise. You choose to fight. You choose to believe. You choose to hold on to hope even when your heart is tired. You choose to keep moving even if your steps are slow. Every time you choose persistence, you reinforce your spiritual backbone. You strengthen your inner man. You build the capacity needed for the next level of destiny. This choice becomes a shield that protects you from the enemy's attempts to wear you down. You are not created to collapse under pressure. You are created to overcome it. But overcoming requires a posture of endurance. Look at every person God used mightily. They all had a moment where they could have quit, but they didn't. Joseph could have surrendered in the prison. David could have surrendered in the wilderness. Job could have surrendered in his suffering. Paul could have surrendered in the dungeon. Ruth could have surrendered in her pain. Esther could have surrendered in fear. Moses could have surrendered at the Red Sea. What separated them from others was not that they had easier journeys, but that they chose to hold on when everything around them tried to convince them to let go. Persistence is a spiritual weapon because it confuses the enemy. When he throws disappointment at you and you still praise, he becomes unsettled. When he throws delays at you and you still hope, he becomes frustrated. When he throws heartbreak at you and you still rise, he becomes confused. When he throws storms at you and you still move forward, he becomes intimidated. Persistence announces to hell that their tactics have failed. It is the loudest declaration you can make. I will not bow. I will not break. I will not retreat. The turnaround does not happen simply because God wills it. It happens because you align with that will by refusing to surrender. God can open the door, but you must walk through it. God can provide the opportunity, but you must step into it. God can release the blessing, but you must be positioned to receive it. Many people miss their turnaround not because God did not prepare it, but because they gave up before they reached it. Persistence keeps you in the place where miracles can manifest. The enemy attacks the hardest when you are closest to breakthrough, because he knows that if you cross that threshold, your faith will become unshakable. He wants to exhaust you into surrender, discourage you into silence, distract you into confusion, and drain you into hopelessness. But he only wins if you stop moving. He only wins if you agree with defeat. He only wins if you abandon the promise. As long as you keep saying, I refuse to quit, you remain undefeatable. Persistence does not mean pretending everything is easy. It means acknowledging the struggle but refusing to bow to it. It means crying but still believing. It means feeling tired but still praying. It means feeling confused but still trusting. It means facing reality but standing on faith. Persistence does not deny the storm. It denies the storm the power to stop you. When you refuse to surrender, heaven stands behind you. Angels are assigned to strengthen you. Grace increases around you. Clarity begins to return. Doors begin to reveal themselves. Favor begins to reposition you. The universe responds to persistence because persistence is spiritual alignment. God never invests divine power into someone who quits easily. He invests in those who endure. He empowers those who stand. He strengthens those who refuse to bow. Sometimes the turnaround requires you to outlast the storm. Sometimes the storm is not meant to be defeated. It is meant to expire. But if you quit, you never live to see its expiration. Many blessings in life are not won. They are inherited by those who endure. Life is not always about overpowering circumstances. It is about outlasting them. If you can outlast the pain will turn into testimony. If you can outlast the rejection will turn into redirection. If you can outlast the silence will turn into clarity. If you can outlast the battle will turn into victory. There will be days when quitting feels easier. Days when the pressure feels unbearable. Days when your mind tries to convince you that nothing will ever change. But those days are not signs of failure. They are signs of transition. They are spiritual contractions. The closer you are to breakthrough, the more intense the pressure becomes. Just like a woman in labor, the final push feels like death, but it is the doorway to life. Persistence is the push that births destiny. When you refuse to surrender, you step into a dimension of power that transforms you. You become stronger mentally, wiser spiritually, sharper emotionally, and more grounded in purpose. You begin to attract opportunities that were hidden before. You begin to see doors that were invisible during the storm. You begin to feel strength that did not exist months ago. You begin to walk with authority that surprises even you. After surviving everything that tried to destroy you, the next season cannot intimidate you. And when the turnaround finally arrives, and it will, you will realize that it was not your strength, not your skill, not your brilliance that brought you here. It was your refusal to surrender. You held on long enough for heaven to reveal what had been prepared for you. You outlasted the enemy. You outlasted the pain. You outlasted the season. And now you step into the manifestation of what persistence has produced. God restores in ways that exceed your expectations, because divine restoration is never a simple replacement of what was lost. It is never a basic repair, never a return to the former condition, never a small-scale recovery. When God restores, He multiplies. When God restores, He elevates. When God restores, He beautifies the broken places until you can no longer recognize the pain that once lived there. Restoration is one of heaven's most powerful signatures, because it does not just give you back what you lost. It gives you back more, better, higher, and deeper than what you imagined. And the reason restoration exceeds expectation is simple. God does not measure by your wounds. He measures by his greatness. People often think restoration means getting back what I had. But what if what you had was too small for your next season? What if what you lost was not meant to come back the same way? What if the pain you endured was heaven's way of clearing space for a level of blessing that the old version of you could not contain? Divine restoration does not return you to the past. It moves you into a future better than the past. It lifts you above what wounded you. It reshapes what broke you. It redeems what betrayed you. It elevates what disappointed you. Restoration is God's way of proving that no loss, no attack, no delay, no betrayal, and no setback has the authority to rewrite the story he scripted for your life. There are moments where life strips you so deeply that you wonder if you will ever return to the person you once were. But the truth is, you are not meant to return. You are meant to evolve. Restoration is not a rewind, it is a resurrection. Resurrection does not bring back the old, it brings forth something transformed. This is why God often waits until you believe all hope is lost, because resurrection requires something to look dead before it can rise. Your broken seasons, your silent years, your hidden tears, your private battles, they create the perfect environment for divine restoration. When everything seems over, heaven is preparing something new. God restores in ways that defy logic. Sometimes he restores through opportunities you never applied for. Sometimes through people you never expected. Sometimes through doors you didn't know existed. He restores through sudden favor, unexpected connections, supernatural acceleration, and moments that feel impossible to explain. But the truth is, divine restoration rarely looks like what you imagined, because God is not obligated to follow your picture. He is committed to fulfilling his promise. He restores not according to what you expect, but according to what he planned. That plan always exceeds human imagination. Look at Job. He lost everything: family, wealth, influence, health. His life collapsed until nothing remained except a broken man sitting in ashes. If the story ended there, it would look unjust. But God never ends stories in ashes. When the restoration came, it did not come quietly. It did not come partially. It did not come in the same measure. It came doubled. It came overflowing. It came in dimensions that silenced every voice that mocked him. And the most powerful part of Job's restoration was not what he received materially. It was that God restored his joy, his honor, his dignity, his purpose. Restoration always touches more than one area, because heaven never does anything halfway. Look at Joseph. He lost his coat, his family, his freedom, his reputation. Everything was stripped from him piece by piece. Yet when the restoration came, it was not simply returning him to his father's house. It lifted him into a throne he never dreamed of. His restoration was not equal to his loss. It was far beyond it. God does not bring you out of a pit just to put you at ground level. He lifts you into places that make the pit worth the process. This is why divine restoration breaks your limits. God does not restore you to where you were before the pain. He restores you to where you never thought you could reach. Look at Ruth. She lost her husband, her home, her identity, her stability. She walked through a season so dark that her name was almost swallowed by sorrow. Yet her restoration came through a new chapter that not only rebuilt her life but positioned her in the lineage of kings. Restoration turned a widow into a matriarch of destiny. Her story shows that God's restoration is generational. It produces fruit that outlives you. When God restores, he does not consult your past, he consults your purpose. This means your mistakes cannot block restoration. Your failures cannot disqualify you. Your setbacks cannot cancel what God intends. Divine restoration is anchored in God's intention, not your perfection. Even when you feel unworthy, restoration comes because God has chosen to show mercy. Even when you feel forgotten, restoration comes because heaven has not forgotten the seeds you planted, the tears you cried, the prayers you've whispered, the faith you held on to in silence. Restoration also exceeds expectations because God takes his time preparing it. While you cry, he is crafting. While you grieve, he is aligning. While you wait, he is building. While you question, he is orchestrating. Restoration requires timing, alignment, wisdom, and perfection. God will not give you something that is not fully ready. That is why the restored version of your life always looks more complete, more stable, more beautiful, more purposeful than the one before. What you receive after suffering always carries a glory that the old season never had. Some restorations come through healing, the kind that makes you stronger than the pain that broke you. Some come through revelation, the kind that gives you clarity that past confusion stole. Some come through elevation, the kind that places you in positions you were previously unqualified for. Some come through relationships, the kind that honor you in ways old relationships never did. But all divine restorations have one thing in common. They make you grateful for surviving what tried to destroy you. Restoration also teaches you the truth about God's nature. It reveals that He is not merely a healer, He is a rewarder. He is not merely a comforter, He is a builder. He is not merely a protector, He is a multiplier. He takes the broken pieces of your life and rebuilds something so beautiful that the former version cannot compare. This is why your next season will surprise you. You think you've lost too much, but God says, watch what I give you next. You think it's too late, but God says, I am the God of times and seasons. You think you are too damaged, but God says, I specialize in broken vessels. You think the story is over, but God says, restoration is how I write my best chapters. There will come a moment where you look back and realize the season you thought would break you actually positioned you. The tears you thought were wasted actually watered the soil of your breakthrough. The rejection you thought would define you actually directed you. The betrayal that wounded you actually freed you from wrong people. The loss that crushed you actually opened space for something greater. Restoration is proof that God does not allow pain without purpose. And when the restoration appears, it does not whisper. It announces itself. It speaks loudly. It testifies openly. It becomes visible to everyone who doubted you, everyone who left you, everyone who misjudged you, and everyone who never understood your journey. Your restoration will not be private. It will be so evident that people will say, only God could have done this. This is why you cannot judge the end of a season by its pain. The season of loss is never the final chapter. Restoration is coming, not the kind you imagine, but the kind that exceeds imagination. Not the kind you plan, but the kind that heaven designs. Not the kind that simply replaces, but the kind that multiplies. You may not see it now, but God is preparing a restoration so profound, so complete, so perfect, that when it unfolds, you will finally understand why the old season had to break before the new one could be built. In the end, everything you have walked through, everything you have cried over, everything that tried to break you, and everything that pushed you to the edge was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to transform you. This journey has not been a story of endings, but a story of becoming. It has been a journey where every delay shaped you, every trial refined you, every loss redirected you, every weakness revealed God's strength, every refusal to surrender built your resilience, and every painful chapter prepared the ground for restoration far beyond what you imagined. The turnaround you've been waiting for is not coming because life has been fair. It's coming because God has been faithful. And now, as you step into this new season, you are not stepping in wounded, confused, or uncertain. You are stepping in wiser, stronger, deeper, and more aligned with your destiny. The battles that tried to bury you only planted you. The darkness that tried to silence you only sharpened you. The pain that tried to diminish you only awakened the power inside you. You have survived everything that was meant to stop you. And now heaven is positioning you for everything that was meant to find you. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a turnaround that carries God's fingerprints, God's timing, and God's glory. May goodness follow you as you enter this next chapter. May strength rise in you when you feel weary. May clarity cover your decisions. May peace guard your heart. May doors open that were once locked. May restoration unfold in ways that exceed every expectation. Your story is shifting, your season is changing, and your destiny is calling you forward. Thank you for allowing me to walk with you through these powerful insights. I wish you strength, breakthrough, and divine favor as you step into what's next. Good luck on your journey, and may every step ahead reveal the greatness that has always been inside you.